Once there was a man named Rhett, a missionary turned megaphone for doubt. He knew the creeds, the verses, the arguments. He taught them. But then he left. Not quietly, not into obscurity. He left loudly, with cameras on and a crowd watching. And like any good tragic hero, he did it with conviction and contradiction. Enter Whaddo, you meme, the earnest YouTuber who tried to patch Rhett's fallen cross with Sunday school glue and philosophical duct tape. But what unfolds isn't a defense of Christianity. It's an accidental expose of how fragile the faith becomes when it relies on apologetic gymnastics rather than honest inquiry. The video attempts to deconstruct Rhett's loss of faith by arguing that the resurrection is the best explanation for early Christian belief, claiming Rhett provides no alternative that fits the historical data, and asserting that the apostles' testimonies and willingness to suffer prove sincerity. It also compares Mormonism unfavorably to Christianity and criticizes Rhett's skepticism as selective and emotionally driven. Let's begin with the resurrection. The idea that it's the best explanation assumes the data is what the apologist says it is: eyewitness testimony, multiple appearances, physical interactions. But the earliest written source, 1 Corinthians 15, was penned decades after the event and doesn't describe a physical resurrection in the Gospel's cinematic sense. Paul speaks of spiritual bodies, not brunch with a reanimated corpse. It is sown a natural body, it is raised a spiritual body. 1 Corinthians 15 verse 44. This isn't CSI Jerusalem, it's theology through a mystical lens. The Gospels themselves don't help. Was Jesus unrecognizable? Luke 24. Did he ascend from Galilee or Jerusalem? Was he seen by all the disciples or just a few? These contradictions don't scream eyewitness report. They whisper layered tradition. The argument that no one in first-century Judaism expected a dying Messiah is true, but that doesn't make the resurrection more likely. It makes it more marketable. If you wanted to launch a movement that broke expectations, you'd write a story that defied them. That's not history. That's branding. As for the old, they wouldn't die for a lie trope, sure, but people die for false beliefs all the time. That doesn't make those beliefs true. Sincerity isn't truth, it's just emotional investment. There's a difference between being deceived and being right, and Rhett dared to ask which was which. Then comes the dodge. The apologist tries to undermine Mormonism by pointing out its lack of physical evidence while defending Christianity on far shakier ground. That's not a double standard, that's a theological shell game. You can't scoff at Joseph Smith's golden plate cosplay and then pivot to a cosmic resurrection based on third-hand scrolls and ghost stories. And when evidence falters, they quote Jesus, "Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed," John 20:29. Even Jesus didn't think proof would save anyone, so why do apologists cling to it like Peter on a sinking boat? The tragic irony is this: the video tries to claim Rhett's uncertainty is arrogance. But uncertainty is what faith actually requires. Faith isn't certainty dressed in a suit. Faith is the courage to not know and still choose. If belief is forced to rest on bulletproof logic, it loses its soul, because Christianity was never about airtight reasoning. It was about love, trust, and sacrifice. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Hebrews 11. That's not a blueprint. That's poetry. Rhett didn't fall from faith, he fell from certainty. And that makes him more like Jesus than the apologists are willing to admit.